Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Weather's a little milder today. Didn't get below freezing or anything like that last night, so it feels kind of nice. We are supposed to get some rain this afternoon, so we'll see if we get that. We need it. I mean, I know the last time we got rain, we got way too much and we had massive flooding, but we really haven't had any since then, so it's gotten dry again. So it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of rain today. So yeah, it's crazy stuff going on in the Middle East. I'm sure most of you are aware of it. But apparently last night, Syria fell. The Syrian government, it collapsed and was overtaken by rebels. These are rebels that are supported by Turkey, and I'm pretty sure the United States. This has U.S. written all over it. But it's Al-Qaeda, for the most part, that these folks have moved into Syria, and basically Syria was defeated in 6 days with really not a lot of fighting. I mean, there's been some, but not a lot. It was very little resistance. They just kind of swept across the nation. Assad, the leader there, has fled. There's been reports since last night that the plane that he fled on crashed, maybe was shot down. Nothing that I can find has confirmed any of that yet. But it is possible that that's happened. But it's been kind of a whirlwind. And I think most Americans really haven't been paying attention to it, partly because it's moving so fast. And another part is well, how does this affect us? Is this something that we should care about? I mean, what's going on here? And the truth is we don't really fully know exactly what's going on. It partly because it's just moved so fast. It's moved so fast, getting information about what's happening on the ground and why this is happening and how this is going to affect us. There's a little lag time there, and we don't know. But I do believe that this is some very serious stuff that's happening, and it will have greater repercussions, not just through the whole region, but everywhere. I would compare what has happened, at least similarly, to Gaddafi in Libya and Saddam in Iraq. Now, obviously, Iraq, you had a big war, and in Libya, you had a civil war. There's been a civil war. There's been wars and stuff going on in Syria for a while now, for several years. The United States has been there. Russia's been there. Israel runs through there and blows some things up. Iraq has been there. Hezbollah, all of these different groups have been working around in Syria. But the Syrian government itself has been supported by Russia. And surprisingly, strangely enough, Russia just kind of walked away early on in this and left Syria by itself. What it's going to do, I believe, is major destabilization in the area. As bad of a guy as Assad was, the leader of Syria, I think it'd be comparable to Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, that they were ruthless dictators, but they offered some stabilization because they did rule pretty harshly and with an iron fist. They kept Islamic extremism out. They didn't have Sharia law. All those places. Christians were able to exist there somewhat freely. All of that. And now the person that's taken over, whether it's permanent or temporary, in Syria, is an Al-Qaeda terrorist that even just a few years ago the FBI had him on one of their most wanted lists. And so now that's the guy that's in charge of Syria and that's running things. And it's going to be hardly any different than what went on in, say, Afghanistan, except Afghanistan is a little bit out of the way, and Afghanistan has always been that way. I mean, you can go back and you can look hundreds of years into Afghanistan's history, and that's all they've ever known is just upheaval and turmoil and civil war and wars. But with Syria, Syria is right there in the heart of all the stuff going on in the Middle East. Borders Israel. It's right there with Iraq and Iran and Turkey and all of these nations. It's right there in the middle of it. And now you have pretty much an extreme Islam terrorist group that is running the country. Who knows what's going to happen? There's several thousand Christians there living in Syria. And if I were them, I'd be getting out of there fast, because who knows what's going to happen. Syria has been pretty moderate. Again, I'm not trying to talk it up that the leadership has been great and all this, but in comparison, they've been pretty moderate. They've been pretty moderate when it comes to Sharia law and imposing that on women and things like that. And that's all going to change, most likely. And so it's going to create a major destabilization in that area. I suspect that the West, because the West has been doing this for a while. This is nothing new whatsoever. Nothing new. The West does not want those Middle Eastern countries stable and strong so that they can band together and be able to stand up against the West's demands. There's oil, there's stuff there that the West wants. And if those nations were strong and able to kind of stand on their own, they could say, hey, listen, this is how the game's going to be played. This is our oil, our land. But because they're destabilized all the time, the United States and the West can kind of do what they want there. And I think that's what's happened again. Of course, Joe Biden and everyone is saying that the United States was not involved in this whatsoever. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that this was just Turkey backing these rebels and that was it. I think there's a lot more to it. Israel has already, since the announcement of the fall of Syria yesterday, overnight, Israel has already taken a pretty substantial ground in Syria, all the way up to Mount Hermon. There's video of IDF soldiers there. And they did it without any resistance. So Israel's moved into Syria and has taken ground there. It's unlikely that they'll give that back. There's just a lot of stuff, folks. It's strange that Russia walked away. I know that the official statement is that Russia walked away because Russia is so busy with Ukraine and stuff. But I'm not so sure that that's the case. This is something to watch, because I don't believe, because the way things happened, the way it just was so quick and odd, I don't think that this is just one of those what you see on the surface is what you get kind of thing. I think there's a big game being played. I think this is part of this deep state moving the chess pieces around on the board. And it's probably not going to have immediate repercussions to us. But I think it will eventually. How it will affect Iran, Israel and Iran. Israel is really winning right now. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that Israel's really winning right now with Hezbollah and Iran kind of backing down. And it's quite possible that they will start moving in to take more land, to take more territory, which at some point is going to, there's going to be this rubber band effect. The point is I think that this action isn't going to reduce the risk of war. I think it may shift the focus and shift it around a little bit differently. It may not be Israel and Iran like we thought it was going to be, or Israel and Lebanon or whatever. But it's definitely being moved around. Syria is an important nation, important ground in a lot of ways. That whole area, Israel or Syria and Iran and Turkey, is all really important when it comes to biblical prophecy. We can't forget that. And Russia. All those nations right there that I just mentioned are all the nations that are mentioned, maybe not nations, but the lands that are mentioned in biblical prophecy of Armageddon and of Gog and Magog and all this kind of stuff. So the things that are happening there, I do believe, are important, and it's destabilizing things. One thing that I want to throw out there, and it's not directly related to this, but it is. Donald Trump made a statement about this, posted a statement, and talking about a lot of things I just mentioned, and how it's happened. And there was one little thing, and I've not seen one person online say anything about it, but in his statement, he said, Russia basically had, I'm paraphrasing it a lot, Russia had to back away because they're so embroiled in this war with Ukraine. They've lost 600,000 troops, and Ukraine's lost 400,000 troops. And he said, and they're involved in a war that could last for years, that could go on for years. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I thought this war was going to end the day you took office. And so I think things are not as black and white as what a lot of people think. In fact, I know that that's the case. I think a lot of people just, well, Russia invaded Ukraine because they want that land, and it's been going on for a few years, and Donald Trump's going to get in there and he's going to end the war, and there's going to be this great peace in the Middle East and all this kind of stuff. And I've been telling people for a while, and it really upsets people. If that's the case, if Donald Trump's capable of doing that, then you should be very worried, because there's only one person in Scripture that talks about doing that kind of stuff. And it's not a good guy. So either that happens, and then we know who Donald Trump is, or he's going to bite off more than he can chew, and things will just continue to spiral out of control, which is, at this point, I think, the more obvious or more likely scenario. And so this belief that everything's just going to be okay, that European wars and Middle Eastern wars are going to end, I think we need to be ready and prepared for that not happening, and not just blindly put faith in the possibility it could just end overnight. These things are worsening. The stuff going on between Taiwan and China, it's amplifying through all this stuff that has been in the news with Russia and Ukraine and Syria. The relations between Taiwan and China is getting worse. They're sending more stuff. China's sending more stuff. It's this constant buildup over there. So there's the wars and rumors of wars prophecy is definitely happening. I'm not saying that this is the moment that those prophecies we're talking about, but we are definitely in a period of wars and rumors of wars. Because they're everywhere. There's several in small little obscure countries that most Americans wouldn't even know what they are or where they're at, that are popping up in the news of little wars. And so we have to continually preparing ourselves, not just for the physical, political repercussions of having these kinds of wars all over, what they could do to the economy and to the supply chain, and to maybe us, meaning Americans, physically going into a war with these. That's all important, and those are things to prepare for. But we also need to continually prepare spiritually, because as these events, I mean, that's exactly why Scripture mentions them. Yeshua says this. It's mentioned in Bible. That's why they're talked about, to give you kind of a heads up, to let you know that these things are happening, and that you need to start preparing yourselves. Okay? That's exactly why. Why are they prophesied in the Bible? Why are these events talked about in the Bible? It's to give you a heads up, folks. And you have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and when you do, you need to react appropriately to them. Okay? And in the same way that you go out and you buy your food and your water and your medical supplies and your guns and your bullets, and you make sure everything's good, and you're out there practicing and target shooting, all this kind of stuff, that's preparations, right? Physical preparations. You need to be putting that same kind of effort and doing those same kind of things when it comes to the spiritual preparations. How much time you spend in Scripture, how much time you spend in prayer, how much time you spend fasting. These things are necessary to strengthen us and build us up because of the times that we are facing. And I believe that it's only going to get worse, and we must prepare for them. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order. and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.